Uh, Hello everyone, today is August 30th. This is just a sync for the router for phase two. Just to hand it over between Philip and uh, the rest of the SRA folks. I think the agenda is pretty light. The only question I have was when I was looking at the documentation says as soon as you merge to main on the HTTP router, it deploys to the worker, but I might have misunderstood the documentation now that I'm speaking out loud. Might have said as soon as we merge main on the deployer project, not on the HTTP router project.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we're missing the trigger from when someone matches code in the HTTP browser, which is very simple to do.
Yes.
I haven't added it yet because I wanted to look into Woodhouse. So we use Woodhouse to follow the pipeline in ops when we merge something from the deployer side in .com. But as far as I could tell, there isn't functionality in Woodhouse to do that across two different repos. I wanted to confirm that before, because we can trigger the pipeline, but then you won't know where it's running.
What we can do is, so we're gonna trigger the pipeline on GitLab.com, right? On the HTTP router service repository, let's just call it that. And that will that trigger a job on GitLab.com HTTP deployer, or would that trigger a job on the ops?
Ops.
Okay.
Yeah. So the idea was to always deploy from ops so that we
Yep.
know that it works there. When something goes wrong with .com, we don't need to figure out if the pipeline works
Yeah.
or not.
One way we can solve it is, so we do the follow job with house on the service repository from com to ops, right? And the trigger
Hmm.
job triggers the job in ops. And then you can do a specific keyword in the trigger, like do depends. So it will continue running until the downstream pipeline is successful um, or finished or failure. And then the follow job will continue following that job, right? Because the pipeline is still considered running at that point. So we
So
don't have
we
to
we act-
do Woodhouse cross project stuff at all.
we actually have that running in the HTTP router deployer when we are running the QA smoke test.
Yeah.
We add a trigger as like a child pipeline.
Yeah, so no, so let's see. Let me show the documentation. So trigger we do a trigger downstream, right? Like we want a downstream pipeline.
Yeah.
Um, and then you trigger and then you can do depend uh, strategy depend. And this means that the job will stay running until the downstream pipeline has finished. Um, and the trigger job will take the status of the downstream pipeline. So if the downstream pipeline is successful, the trigger job will become successful. If the downstream pipeline fails, the trigger job fails. So with strategy, it depends. You leave the trigger job running until the downstream pipeline has finished running.
But the downstream pipeline is in ops.
Yes, but if we do the follow job on GitLab.com, like service repository, like let's see. Um,
Okay. So we will follow the Woodhouse check remote job in .com, right?
yes, exactly. So
Uh,
let's say this is ops.
But the problem with that is because Woodhouse needs to find an MR to post something into.
Mm-hmm. So we have GitLab.com, and this is HTTP router, right? Um, HTTP router, and we have the same on ops, right? So we merge to main. So this one here is merged to main. So this is running a follow job, right? And this is following the job in ops here, right? So
Yep.
that's normal behavior we have today, or we can have today. And
Okay,
then
so
this one
instead
will,
of Woodhouse posting in the MR, we just basically get the link from
I
the
mean,
job.
it will post in the MR when you merge into main, right?
Yes, but only in a repo that it knows, only the mirror. It doesn't work across two different repos
Yeah,
because it uses the commit hash to find the
but
CI job.
these are mirrored, and we can just set up Woodhouse on this one, no?
Um, yeah,
Maybe
but
I'm,
it doesn't deploy from there. It deploys from the deployer.
yes,
Uh,
but this router will trigger a pipeline to HTTP router deployer, right?
Yes.
That's what we're saying. And then we can do strategy depend. So this pipeline here that's running will stay running under the deployer pipeline, downstream pipeline is finished. So then this one, Woodhouse will say, oh, I'm following the job here. This job is running because this has strategy depend.
Okay. Yeah, I see. So instead
Does that
of
make sense?
adding Woodhouse across different repos, we do it in the same in parallel. So you get the link to the job in ops for the HTTP router service,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to go to that job and click on the pipeline to ops for the
Uh,
deployer part.
I mean, you would see it in the same pipeline view with the downstream pipeline, right? Like you can expand it.
Yeah.
So um, I would imagine I merge a merge request in the HTTP router service. Woodhouse leaves a comment, hey, this is your pipeline in ops. I click that link and I should see the pipeline running for this service. And it has a trigger job with strategy depend, which I can expand and see the HTTP deployer pipeline.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. We can try that and see. It's
I guess
not.
if you open the link that I sent on the Zoom chat, that does exactly that. And if you click
Okay.
on
Yeah.
the pipeline link, it shows us following.
Yeah. But that's for a normal job, right?
No,
Um,
it is triggering a job in the QA quality uh, staging project. Yeah, the
So yeah,
downstream job.
exactly like this, but just for a different project, basically.
yes, yes. All right, yeah, we can try that.
Okay, yeah. Uh, I wasn't like asking, like, I was curious if I misunderstood the documentation or not. You said we had an
No,
existing issue for this, Philip?
yes, I have to
Okay,
find it.
okay.
I'll
If you
link it in
can,
the agenda.
yeah, link it in the agenda and let me know. So, yeah. Another thing, oh, Tyrone, you have an item.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about the rollback plan. I'm not sure if people were able to read that before the sync since I added it, I guess, 10 minutes ago. Uh, but it's around the semantic release. And if I guess we don't want to change the backend engineers' workflow because they are already restricted, we don't want to make them do conventional commits. And if we plan to just use the production SHA or the commit SHA as the production environment, uh, then I guess the what we can do is embed the commit SHA as part of the worker in some route. Uh, and that way, instead of deploying, we can do a version deploy using Wrangler. Those are still in beta, but that should work. I need to test that out. And in the pipeline, we do a loop to check if the version is updated. If it is, then we trigger the QA pipeline. If that fails, we just do Wrangler deploy since it's version, so it should keep a history of all the versions. Uh, And yeah, that should work. And at any given point, we should be able to check which commit is running on production or on staging.
Yeah, and I think it also depends how we intend to do rollbacks, right? Um, I could see us go in the direction, for example, let's say engineer A merges something in HTTP router, we deploy it, and there are two ways we might trigger a rollback one. One is we deployed it, QA passes, but then we realize there's some either performance issue or some I don't know, triggering new behavior that tests don't cover.
Mhm.
One way we can roll that back is by just reverting the merge request again and redeploying the new version. Another way is what you just said, is rolling back through Wrangler, doing the deployer versions. Now, if we do the Wrangler part, my concern would be that main and what we have in production are disjointed at that point. So there could be a chance if we don't revert the merge request. Let's say, I don't know, we're on call during the weekend. We roll back the the deploy version in Cloudflare. Come Monday, the engineer doesn't know there was an incident on HTTP router, opens up a new merge request, merges it, and deploys the problem again. I think if we want to have the worker on Cloudflare and HTTP router as in sync, the rollback should always be we revert the merge request either in a
Yeah.
deployer or an HTTP router. So but I do get your point as well, because just doing regular rollback is probably going to be much, much faster, right? So it also depends on the
Yeah.
type of
Even
incident, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess even on the Wrangler deploy rollback, even if we do it as part of the incident, like, we should always revert. It could be a follow-up issue that needs to be done.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I guess then as part of that, I can close the existing semantic release uh, issue that we have. And since I have the other issues open, we can work on that.
okay. Um
I
okay.
think it's important to keep both. Like having the version kind of things on Cloudflare side allows us to revert directly on Cloudflare side without anything on our side. And the other part is that if something goes wrong with Cloudflare, um, we don't necessarily have to deploy the worker again because it's already stored on their side. So it might allow us to revert on their side without doing anything in terms of deployment. And the other part is what Steve was saying, like if there's something in the code or whatever, we need to revert an MR.
Yeah, so even on the rollbacks, I'm still trying to see if I can find a relation between the version that the Wrangler gives the worker. Uh, So we can always go to the UI. There would be multiple
Yeah.
versions, and you can click on a particular version to roll back to that.
I wonder if we can
If we,
specify a version
yeah,
number. That would be
yeah,
awesome.
exactly. Yeah, if that works, like, we can possibly keep the commit SHA and the worker version in sync in all ways. So it would be easier than to go to a specific rollback version.
Yeah.
Looking at the deploy options, it doesn't seem like
We would need to use Wrangler versions subcommand instead of deploy.
fair enough, yeah. Uh,
I think it's
in,
Wrangler versions.
oh, yep. Okay.
Uh, yeah.
Versions, yeah, of course, makes sense. Oh, maybe deployment. Let's see. Okay, well, we can do this async, I guess, but
Yeah.
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 Okay.
It's
We
deployments.
can Oh yeah, we can put the version in the wrangler.tom itself, but then we need to see if we wanted as the commit shell, do we update the wrangler.config at wrangler.tom at the runtime itself when we are deploying the
Mm,
worker?
yeah. Yeah, you can pass the config flag, I guess. Yeah, we can investigate that. We'll
Yeah.
see. Okay. Um,
If we
Sweet.
decide to do it before production, we need to add like some logic on the pipeline because you can't at the moment you can't deploy the first time with the versioning system. There is a few limitations still on their side.
Yes.
So the first time you can specify a version?
You
Oh
need to
yeah, of
do a
course.
regular
Yeah.
deployment. Yeah,
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, fair. Okay.
it doesn't allow to deploy even if you're doing like a normal deploy, but if you're trying to do a deploy with the versioning system, it doesn't work.
Yeah, fair enough.
Which would only be the first time we deploy the production, right?
And
Yeah.
probably that can be done manually anyways, right? So
Yeah.
okay. Um, um So I set up a weekly sync on Mondays. I didn't invite you, Philip, because I don't want to bug you on your last few days, but I can invite you. And these are just weekly syncs, so we keep sync on phase two. If
Yeah, you
you want to
can keep
invite,
me. I still
uh,
have 3 weeks or so.
cool. Um, Let me know if the time is fine for you folks. I'm not sure if we want to meet next Monday because there's not much to be discussed. I guess next Monday we can skip it, but like I just set it up on a Monday weekly cadence, on Mondays. But yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I'll be writing the change request so we can enable the routes next week.
Awesome. Okay.
And from there, we'll have the production readiness and the logging, monitoring, and so on for production.
Yeah. Do we wanna before we do staging, do we wanna set up a continuous delivery from the service repository to the deployer repository, like what we just discussed?
Yeah, you mean the trigger? Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna do that.
Sweet. Okay.
Okay,
Otherwise,
should we also
we can deploy to staging also.
should we also add the rollback functionality before deploying to staging?
Um,
I mean, I
I mean, if
wanted
we do the
to.
trigger stuff, we get the rollback quote unquote for free because it's we can just revert the merge request and it deploys the new version. Um,
Mhm.
I think the rollback through Wrangler and like putting the commit version, that's more of an like quality of life improvement and like
Oh,
production readiness improvement. Like,
yeah, but what I was thinking in terms of rollback in case the smoke test failed instead of a
mm-hmm.
problem in the router itself. Maybe there was some other
Ah,
issue.
okay. So what you're thinking is having automated rollbacks
Yeah,
if smoke test fail, we roll back.
yeah.
Um, yeah, that feels more production readiness review than blocking staging. But if you have a strong opinion, um,
Mhm.
like I'm happy to include that before we start rolling out on staging.
We can start rolling out. I just would feel, I guess, a bit safer if we had that tested and working before we roll out to production.
Okay, yeah, cool.
Uh, which we can also do, I guess, after rolling out staging, just having a
Yeah,
exit instead of
yeah.
test.
Um,
But
do to do that, do you wanna maybe we close this issue and open up a new issue, or do you just
Mhm.
want to reuse this issue, update it for automated rollbacks or something like that?
Yeah, I guess I can rename this one for the automated rollout.
Sweet.
at the moment, it fails. If if it goes to pre and QA fails there, then it doesn't get deployed in staging. So we kind of
Uh,
safe-ish.
Right now, I have skipped pre to run the QA test because there was no QA repository for it.
All right. Should there be one?
Mhm.
Like for us, if it's just for us, no. I mean, pre is pre. No one uses it. Um, what I'm more concerned about
But
is
that's the main point, right? Nobody uses it, so you
uh,
can break it easily, and
yeah,
not many people are gonna complain. But if it goes to staging and breaks, and then the rollback kind of thing becomes more important.
yeah, fair enough. Maybe to run, you can open up an issue under phase 2.2 and ping Andy about it to see what his thoughts are. And there's like the software engineering and test or whatever we're
Okay.
calling them this month because we changed their names like 5 times. Um,
Uh, what's the
for
full name?
SaaS. Yeah, let me give you the name here. Uh, Andy Hohenner. But so it's
Mm,
point 2C. Ping them, see what they think, and
mm.
let them know to see if maybe we have a pre. I'm surprised because we deploy the release candidates on pre for the release manager. So I assume they are running some kind of QA stuff. Maybe they're doing it differently, but let them know.
Hmm.
Another thought that came to mind is we have staging canary and production canary as well. And as far as I know, those are separate QA pipelines, right? Um, do we want to run those if they are separate QA pipelines?
So from what I could see from the pipeline definitions, the canary just targets the canary deployments, but the staging one targets everything,
Okay, yeah,
the whole staging. So it should be,
then that makes sense. Yeah, fair enough.
no.
Is the same code base. I mean, there isn't anything in HTTP router that is specific to Canary.
Agree.
Wouldn't be
Yeah, makes sense.
gaining much from it.
Yeah, agreed. Makes sense.
Would be good if we could target the router only to Canary, but that's
Yeah.
not an easy thing
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah. The version deploy actually allows you to do a gradual rollout with a X% to previous version and the
Yeah.
new version, but it doesn't allow you to specify it's if it's based on cookies, so we can't use it effectively for our canary
Yeah.
rolling out to just canaries.
Yeah. I think we will end up using the gradual rollout. I think there's an issue for the production rollout to use gradual deployments for these reasons. And if we do gradual deployments, then your automatic rollback becomes really important at that point as well to run. So, yeah.
I'm not sure how the gradual rollouts would be helpful for us because we don't have any control of what servers it would be rolling out to, just an X percentage.
Yeah, I
And
think it's purely for us to don't go deploy a version in one go. So we have time to react. It's more for reacting purposes. So let's say um, a common thing that's going to happen is an engineer updates the rules, for example, changing something in the rule engine. And we want to say, we're gonna hopefully at some point we're gonna have what Jack is working on having SLIs and SLOs on latency and error rates, for example, on the number of exceptions thrown, right? So if we say we gradually roll out a new version 10% and the exception ratio spikes up, pages the on-call
mm,
has time to react. It's more for us to give us time to react, and then in the future maybe add some monitoring around, hey, is the SLI okay? We can increase the deployment from
okay.
40 to 50 rather than anything else. It's more to give us time to react.
Mhm.
Yeah. It also gives some safety on Cloudflare side if there is something with a runtime because they were doing a deployment or changing something on their side. It's also a way for them to kind of put some safety on their side.
Yep. Awesome. Anything else we want to discuss? One last thing, I guess, would be just walk the boards. Just we created Tarun helped me create the um, issue boards, which seemed to be helpful for phase one. So we did one for phase two. The only problem is since we have multiple epics, boards don't support multiple epics. So we had to create one board at a time. Um, this one is for phase 2.2. I'm guessing nothing is blocked. This is in progress and review. Version and okay, yeah. Um, One thing that maybe we need to sync up a little bit, Philip, is around the performance baseline for the router and like doing the comparison before and after. Um, I'm not sure how
Yeah,
Andy is thinking about that. Let me know if you want me to sync with Andy myself, since it's a weird time zone for you to sync up with Andy.
there is metrics we can pull from the control plane. I don't know if they're well, we can see them. I don't know if you can pull them. But they basically have CPU wall time and
Yeah.
latency for how long the worker is executing. Um, I don't see any concerns of in terms of adding latency or anything like that because it's very fast and it's streaming the connection. The part that I think we need to look into is that if we can pull those metrics out with exporter and more for us to have the if something changes in terms of performance, like somebody adds something new code and it changes the drastically increases CPU time. It's not only a question of latency because even if we go to 10 milliseconds on the worker, most users won't see any, they won't be able to see any difference, but it will have a drastic impact in cost because we pay per CPU time used.
We do already get these from the exporter that we already have set up. I think we actually get them 5 times because of 5 separate exporters pulling from the Cloudflare account.
Right?
Yeah, we
Perfect
get
then.
we already get the different quantiles.
I think what Andy's concern or like our concern was when we said, oh, let's get a performance baseline, it's not for the router itself, it's more end to end, right? Because like the metrics we get on the router, like the wall time and things like that, that's purely on on a micro level on the router. What we're
Mhm.
concerned about, we're adding something new in the network pod. We don't know. We don't have, I think right now we don't have a visibility end-to-end test latency wise, right? Like if adding the
Um,
router, yes, it's 1 millisecond, but does Cloudflare have more overheads that it's not showing us? Because for example, when I did some performance testing myself during the POC, it was like 15 milliseconds overhead with the worker. But wall clock time on the dashboard was just 2 milliseconds. But that is only looking at how long the CPU, how much CPU we spent, right? So I think that
yeah,
was the intention.
that was probably a cold start. Um,
Yeah,
in terms of Cloudflare, like internal thing, it's all the same because it's the same engine, and they stream the connections because you get the connection as a context in the worker. So all the latency that's gonna happen there is from them kind of pulling the code and starting it.
yeah. But
And
we
we,
don't know
we
how, we don't have
have
the visibility right now how much of a hit that is, right?
Um, I don't know if I spoke about this with Jack or Turn, but we do have black box probes, so we might have
Mm-hmm.
latency of requests there. We used to have ping.com where we would get like health checks from around the globe, and
Yeah.
they did have the latency. I don't know if we still have it, but that would
We
be
still have it. It's very limited though, like it's only looking at 5 endpoints. Um I think.
But if it checks them around the world, then it's good enough for us because we
Yeah,
only need to know the latency around the
fair
globe.
enough.
The
Yeah,
endpoint itself, it doesn't matter for the router.
yeah, fair enough. So, do you want to sync up with Andy around this, or shall I?
Which time zone is he in?
He's US Central, I think. Let me see. He is in California, so
California.
it's mid.
Um,
Yeah, it's west for him.
I can schedule a call with him next week.
Okay. We can start async as well in the issue. Might be faster for you.
Or that, yeah.
Okay, so let's look at the board, and then these are the staging stuff. This one we're not gonna look at, only Jack is working on the SLI stuff. And this one is production we're not gonna look at the moment. But yeah. You already have continuous deployment. There we go. Sweet. Nice. Anything else we want to discuss?
Nope.
Just wanted to mention the on the Pingdom side, there is already an exporter that exists, but we're not using from the looks of it, so we can maybe pull the data into Prometheus and use that for SLIs as well.
Yeah. That would make sense. My only concern would be scope creep, but it feels like there's something that we should have already, so maybe we just do it. So because I imagine what the performance engineers are gonna look at is probably use something like K6, where they send a bunch of requests and get a like a P99 and so on and so forth. So it depends what they want. If we want continuous observability, like the pingdom exporter might be better at that point.
Yeah. Because it will always depend on who's carrying the tests
Exactly.
to get those kinds of latencies. And you know, if they get routed to another data center, then those latencies don't mean anything.
Yeah. Benchmarking like for this kind of stuff is really hard, just especially since network traffic
Yeah.
is routed in so many different ways.
Yeah, we need something really constant, like every 5 minutes and over a long period of time to be able to kind of get some value out of it.
Yeah. So let's maybe look. Where's login? What kind of information we get from Pingdom?
I forgot they were bought by SolarWinds.
uh, so I think it's synthetic, what we have. Yes.
Yeah, we just have uptime as well, but it does track the response time.
Yeah. And this is useless for us. Calculator, this one, I
Um,
guess. Yeah.
think about goes through a worker now.
It does. No. What goes through a worker is the redirect to about. From GitLab.com to about if you have a cookie or not. Unless we added another worker for about.
No, yeah, we did add one for the about when we moved it from Fastly.
Okay.
So if we look back enough, we can probably see the difference in latency there.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe just using Pingdom, adding more routes. Like for example, for the internal routes, we have specific routes like GitLab or GitLab and things like that, right? We can add those to the uptime checks and then get the exporter and maybe slap an SLI on it as well.
Yeah, ideally, endpoints that don't do much computing. Like I don't think like the GitLab repo is a good idea because it will is basically a benchmark of Gitly.
Fair enough. Yeah. Yeah, fair.
We'll have to see if we have like some endpoint that just returns like a text. We do have like the health check endpoints. I don't know if they are blocked by a JProxy.
I think they're blocked. Good question. Like static endpoints would be nice.
Robots.
Robots, or maybe I'm thinking uploads, some uploads URLs, because those will be proxied, like assets, right? Like JavaScript assets might be good because they will end up being proxied by the worker, and that's always static.
Robots, the OIDC discovery, all of those should be pretty static and don't change over time.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That in the issue.
Thank you. Awesome. Anything else? Thank you so much. Have a nice Friday, everyone.
Yep. Take care.
Thanks,
Bye.